Well, welcome back to Rough Restos for, well, you probably guessed, another episode on the M113 conversion on my Ford Capri. So, last episode we got the cooling system done. Now that was yesterday, and yesterday threw a lot of shit at me, to be honest. Everything almost that could go wrong was going wrong, and things would be in a pain. And I would come into it thinking, oh yeah, we'll have another successful weekend after the last two weekends that were really successful. But no, obviously I couldn't have a third successful weekend. So I have not got high anticipation for this afternoon. We're now Sunday afternoon. We're just going to keep muddling on because, well, I could go sulk, couldn't I? Walk away from it, do nothing, but that's not going to get on the road, is it? We're going to overcome these little hurdles in order to crack on and get it working, because it's not going to do itself, is it? So, I'm actually still waiting on some cooling system parts, so that episode isn't finished yet. So we're actually behind? I don't know. Either way, you've seen future Jordan already before seeing the past Jordan from the future Jordan. I'll shut up. So, what we need to do is the exhaust fitment. It doesn't need to be done yet. The downpipes need a bit of adjustment from where they are now. The engine's back in the car, so I can mock that up. Might as well mock the whole exhaust up, especially in case I need to order anything. I shouldn't do. I think I've got enough old pipe bends and such lying around. So when we get that done, probably that's not going to be a video in itself. If it is, then I'm dragging it out really bad. The next thing I am dreading is modifying the clutch. So I need to put a hydraulic clutch in there. So for the exhaust, don't judge me, okay? I know it's rough, but I bought clamp-on flexis. Now, the reason being is, obviously, the manifolds aren't optimum. The way I've had to come off the manifolds aren't optimum. And the exhaust, I think it's like a 1.75 inch Sportex system, chopped and changed around. I need a full stainless exhaust built. But I don't need that yet, so we won't be doing that yet, because that's time and money. We don't need to go there yet. So, the reason I bought the clamp-on ones is because I can be really lazy and just clamp them on for now. We might weld them on, depends how it works out, but I thought I'd buy the clamp-on ones just in case. I don't like the idea. It works, but it's just a bit rough. So we got them. We can use them either way. And now, some of you may know I'm a bit tight. In some ways. But I have not been spending thousands of pounds. Once we finish this build, I will tell you how much it costs to put the Mercedes engine in Capri. I think overall it's going to be surprisingly cheap. I could have done it a lot cheaper, but I'm not wasting money for the sake of it, if it makes sense. Like, things like the prop shaft now, I get all made properly. That's quite expensive. But I'm not blowing money just for the sake of it. There's better things I could be spending it on, or I could put it towards the bodywork and all that as well. So what I bought, I needed a brake reservoir for the clutch feed. Now I use a motorbike one on my Mark II Golf just because it worked out easier and cheaper. And at least if you're then disturbing the clutch setup or the brake setup, you don't disturb each other. So I kind of like that. Or if you lose one, you don't lose both. So it was about £7 to get the pot and a bit of hose off eBay. Or for about like £8 or £9, you could get it with a motorbike, a quad bike, master cylinder, which has two nice mounting points, has an adjustable arm and clevis pin, and I think a standard banjo or M10x1 threaded port, which I thought was perfect, and it only cost me a couple of quid. However, I think I'm not going to use that now. Obviously, with brakes and clutches and that, and when you're working with hydraulics, you need to displace a certain amount of fluid. So obviously, whatever you displace from the master cylinder has to then go into the slave cylinder and push that item the required amount. So normally they're matched. So for the required amount of travel on the clutch pedal, we'll displace enough fluid to release the clutch by pushing the release bearing on the concentric slave cylinder. So this might work. It might displace enough fluid. It might displace too much fluid, in which case I could blow out seals on the concentric slave, or it might not displace enough fluid, in which case it just won't work. So I was gonna rig it up, play around with it, and confirm all this before putting it in the car. But That's a ball ache. It's going to take time. It might not work. I'm just being a bit cheap. So, I'm not going to use that right now. I will be using the pot though. And instead, I went and splashed out on a Febby master cylinder from a SLK 320, which is I think around the sort of 2002-ish mark again, which should be the same car that gearbox come from. So this slave cylinder, this master cylinder, will work with that clutch. Now I don't know how much pedal travel it's meant to be, but I'm assuming there's not much there. I'm assuming it's going to be sort of almost full travel. So we're going to try and use this one first. Now on the back, I think it's got like an M12 by whatever standard fitting. On the top, it's meant to have just a pipe that pushes into it. Don't know how I'm going to get around to it yet. Don't know if this is going to fit, so we're going to try it. What's the worst that could happen, eh? So, anyway, I'm going to shut up now because you guys are going to listen to me for far too long. Let's crack on with the exhaust, and then we'll work away to the one I've been dreading, this one. So, I dug out whatever 2-inch stock I had. I thought I had more, but for some reason I don't. So, I've only got that much 2-inch stainless left, which I thought I had a few foot of, but oh well. These are the boost pipes that I made for Capri, which obviously aren't needed anymore. Joiners. That's 1 3/4 inch, that's no use. And then what I've done is I cleaned the oil off the old exhaust pipe, still need to do the underside of the car. Mocked it back up again, as to where it roughly needs to go. So it comes here and here. Now I'll probably make a set of second exhaust hangers. Whether I reuse these other gearbox mounts I previously made for the RX 8 would be quite nice. Because there's no hangers until you get to the rear box then, so I wouldn't mind something off of here potentially. So I'll suss that out, and that obviously currently finishes there and there, but we need it to go up to here, and not quite here, because this here is going to foul the steering shaft once I've extended it. So this needs to move across. Not sure I can do it yet. I might try and break off a tacks and cut it down and re-tack it in place. This side is absolutely fine. The only issue with this side is the wiring's obviously close proximity, so I'm going to have to tuck it out of the way. But basically, you need to come down off here now and end up with a 2-inch stub sticking out. I don't want it to come back much past here because it's going to be permanently attached to the engine. And then from that we'll go into the flexi, and from the flexi to the rest of the exhaust. But only as like a temporary measure, nothing permanent. So I'm going to start cutting, tacking, grinding, welding, and just see what I can come up with here in a minute. As I said before, it might be rough. It is rough, but it's temporary until I can get a full stainless system sorted out, which obviously there's no point me doing until the whole car's working and I'm happy with it always there. So for now, we've made use of scrap. Bar the flexis, they were new, but I might keep them actually as clamp on, because then I can maybe reuse them in the future for something. Ideally I'll go to about 2.5-inch system with maybe an X pipe once I get to that point. But for now, we got it in. It's not too bad. That bit of tube was sourced off of another project I had. My first March Golf I built, and that was a dodgy bit of boost pipe me and a mate bodged with out with a welder with no gas on a straight 90-degree like lobster back bend. It was awful, but it held good memories, so I cut something off that. So that's a good bit going in there. This side's a bit rougher. I actually ran out of tube, and this side had been quite heavily cut around before. I could have done the right thing and cut all this off because it's all been heavily modified, and made it as straight as possible and bought some new tubes that all lined up. Instead, I just made do with whatever I had in the scrap pile. So I found part of the old Mercedes exhaust in the scrap pile. That was a bit of new stainless I had there. No, that wasn't. That was a bit of the old exhaust. That was a bit of new stainless behind there. And that's the old Capri boost pipe. And that's new stainless. So it's a bit rough, but it'll be functional. I'll get it all welded up at some point. Now I have done something I might grow to regret, I might not. I thought, it can't rattle if it can't move. So off the old RX-8 gearbox mounts, I can ditch them at some point, but I bolted on a solid mount, which needs obviously final welding up. So that stops the exhaust moving at the front here. So the front can't rattle. Obviously the flex is between that and the engine. The engine shouldn't move too much because it's on the big Land Rover mounts. So the flex should take up that. The only possible risk might be a little bit of vibrations, I'm not sure. But to stop the front end moving, which will then hopefully stiffen up the rear end, which obviously is on rubbers, we'll give it a go. Like I said, I don't know what's going to happen. If you think it's a terrible idea, let me know. By the time this video's out, the exhaust will be final welded and I'll hopefully be able to drive this thing around. This thing needs just so much work. Poor thing. It's going to get it one day. Need to modify all that soon for the cooling system. We're making progress. Lots to do yet. Lots to do. But is there a bird got in here somewhere? Yeah, not a clue. Oh well. So yeah, that's probably we got. Oh, and of course we need to put a lambda sensor somewhere. Now I know the recommendation is it's meant to be about 2 foot from the head and that. I'm probably about 1.5 foot if I go to here. So I'm not sure yet, but I don't want to go past the flexi because obviously you got the risk of leaks from the joints and the risk of flexi splitting and leaking. Now that'd also throw the AFR ratio out, which is quite important. So I'd prefer to have it on a guaranteed leak-free side prior to flexi. I don't know, maybe a bit more Googling for that. Wiring to sort out still. We're making progress. Brake lines all... Yeah, I'm not even going to think about how much work I've got to do yet. So I think next up on the list in a minute we'll be doing the clutch. That's probably not going to be today now because I want to enjoy my Sunday evening. But yeah, so far I'm happy with the progress. We are making progress still. I pulled the engine back out the car again. Fantastic. And now we're ready to sort of weld up this bodge from last time and start welding up these manifolds really. So I'm going to crack on with that for now. It's going to be interesting, and I've got to weld in a lambda sensor, so I hope to see you guys shortly. Making progress. So there's the exhaust welded up. Now I did decide to grind it because, you know, a grinder and paint makes me the welder I ain't, but I didn't need to really, as these are only sort of temporary, so they look rough and that's because they are. Same this one here, welded onto the existing, blanked off there. That will probably collect water, but I guess at least each time it should evaporate once it gets up to temperature again. Nothing too pretty, just 2 downpipes lashed on. So I'm not going much keen on that. I was kind of running out of welding gas, which didn't help, and I ran out of stainless wire. It turned. Oh no! Oh, no, there it is. Oh well, whoops. It's all welded with mild steel wire as well, even on the stainless bits. But it will work. I need a new exhaust one day because that's a bit rough. So I'll probably wrap that in heat stuff anyway, because what's going to be close to it each side, so I'll keep it a bit tidier, won't it? Well, I think we've made a good bit of progress there. Well, I reckon this episode's gone on enough now. What have we done this episode? I forgot now already, to be honest. All sorts of little bits and bobs, I can't even remember. The exhaust being one major one of them is now done. That's perfect. So that's one of the big hurdles of stopping us getting a car running in the engine bay was the exhaust. The cooling system was done last episode as well. Another big hurdle. So we can have a lambda sensor. We can have a cooling system, which means short of a bit of fuel and some wiring, this thing can run in the car, can't it? And then we can start actually tuning it and getting it to run properly. So yeah, I'm happy to progress again. Things have been a bit of a pain. The exhaust actually wasn't too bad in the end. Just a lot of fabbing. I know it's not perfect. It's only a temporary setup really, just to get it going. You know, there's things I want to change, but I haven't really got the time to be doing it all perfect and sourcing all these bits yet. Not when I still haven't tried the engine in the car yet and driven it. So I've got to leave me a few things to do in the future, right? So I'm going to end it with that episode. Next episode, we're going to be probably looking into now doing the clutch, steering shaft, getting the engine back in, and maybe finishing up the wiring, I guess. After that, surely we should be at the stage where we're driving this thing. So it's now the first bank holiday, well, it's a Saturday on the bank holiday in the May weekend. So by the end of that month, I want to be driving this thing around before we tear it apart and make it pretty before getting it on the road. So yeah, if you've been enjoying this content, why not drop me a comment, tell me what you think. Obviously, if you like the video, that helps a lot. Helps get shared around YouTube and gets to be more well known. I've had quite a lot of good feedback already, so I really appreciate that. And subscribe for plenty more. Look back on the tons I've already got on my channel, on this build, previous builds, the 2012 Turbo Mark II Golf, Turbo Range Rover, all of that. So yeah, thank you for watching. I've been Jordan, and with any luck, I'll see you again next time. Cheers.